go to children's church, Cooper. I don't know. Have a good time. I did not know that we were in the middle of a great membership drive, but it was probably going to be fairly effective. If you do not come, we will make you an elder. So just want you to understand that. So you had better show up or you will be an elder next week. So don't skip out on us. We need you here. And I didn't mean to overlook the Bryant clan when I was talking about the Hiddle clan. We're just used to the extended Bryant clan, but we do have a little extension on the Bryant clan for our shower today as well. And I hope that all of you, again, will look forward to that. God is good to us, and we have a great family here. If you're looking for a church home, we invite you just to check us out and see if we represent Jesus well. And if we do not, then please come help us do that better. We would love to have you here. We are by no means perfect, but we are trying to be who Jesus calls us to be each day of the week. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. There's a day in the life of Jesus that extends to a scene after it in Matthew chapter 16. And in Matthew chapter 16, there just has to be this nagging burden for Jesus. He gets up and he heads into town. And as he heads into town, he's under attack again. And can you just imagine Jesus with a sword and someone trying to attack him, and he just repels every blow that they have? He just is able to just quell every attack. No one can touch him. Not mentally, not spiritually, not physically. And it seems that he's constantly under this sort of attack. And I don't know about you, but I would get tired of that, knowing that I was challenged on everything I did, that I was always in that position. And Jesus has this account that happens here in the first part of Matthew 16. And when I started working on this lesson, all I could come up with was that first line of living on the Lord's side. And then I couldn't remember how the rest of it went. So all week long I've been singing on living on the Lord's side and hoping that Byron would lead it. And when I saw it in the worship order, I was thrilled. Tell me, whose side are you living on? And that's really what Jesus helps the audience with in Matthew chapter 16. And maybe he'll help you with it this morning. Because tell me, whose side are you living on? The Pharisees and Sadducees came up, and testing Jesus, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. And he replied to them, when it is evening, you say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, there will be a storm today, for the sky is red and threatening. Do you know how to discern the appearance of the sky, but cannot discern the signs of the times? An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and a sign will not be given it, except the sign of Jonah. And he left them and went away. Discerning. Just want to ask Jesus a question. I want to see if I can get a sign out of him. But they don't really want a sign. Jesus never spanks someone that's really zealously trying to come after them. They don't want a sign. They just want a trap. They're not trying to discern whether Jesus is really the Messiah. They've already decided he isn't. And so they're just after another miracle, after another sign. Perform. You be the dancing monkey for us. We'll play and you just dance for us, Jesus. And we'll just keep asking this. And he says, I'm not playing your game. I'm not going to take your test. I'm not going under your scrutiny. I won't be evaluated by you. Let me just remind you, you say you can tell what the weather's going to be. You watch the clouds and you note how things are. And you say, I know what the day's going to be like. I can tell. But you can't even read the signs of the times. There are billboards everywhere saying that Jesus is the Christ. And they're not reading them. There are people walking the streets asking the question, I wonder if Jesus is the Christ, and they're quelling it in every way that they can. So Jesus just parries their blow. He sets his sword, and they come at him, and he just blocks it so naturally. Oh, don't try that with me. I know what your heart is. Maybe you're one that likes to test Jesus. Maybe you're challenging him and asking him, Lord, just show me a sign and I'll join up. I'll be one of those faithful Christian followers. Just show me a sign. And he says, oh, you don't want to be a Christian? You don't want to follow me? And he just parries the blow that you're putting after him. Your heart's not with me. You're not hungering and thirsting after righteousness. You're just wanting to play some religious game that makes it look like you're part of society. Just don't even play with me. Diverting the attack. But Jesus also goes along and he helps them understand the warning of the influence that is around them. The disciples now. Kind of a strange little twist. Jesus doesn't take their test from the Pharisees, but he gives his disciples a little pop quiz. Just gives them a little pop quiz. I don't know about you, but in school, I just love to take pop quizzes. It was one of my favorite things, right? That was just a lot of fun. Teacher shows up, said, did you read last night? And you say, well, we're fixing to find out, aren't we? You know, I don't know if they can even do that anymore. HIPAA may not let you turn the paper to the person behind you. All we did was to answer 10 questions right, take the paper and hand it back one, and everybody graded the papers around them. I didn't mind that until the girl behind me didn't like me and she would change my answers, but that didn't happen too often. He gives them just a little quiz. They take it. It's what Merrick read to us earlier, verse 5. The disciples came to the other side of the sea, but they had forgotten to bring any bread. Uh-oh. Danger. Who forgot the bread? We're in real trouble now. And they probably don't think a whole lot about it until Jesus says this. Jesus said to them, watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. All right, which one of you guys forgot the bread? Who's leaving out their job? We ought to have some bread, and Jesus is now asking us about leaven. And they're just like most of us. They're running scared, and instead of hearing what Jesus says, they say, ooh, he said that because we didn't bring any bread with us. Here we are, we've been following him all this time, and now we've gone all the way across the sea, and we don't have any bread. Jesus has got to be shaking his head by this time, saying, come on, guys, this is not that sort of test. I was just asking a question. I was just laying it out there. Watch out and be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. They began to discuss, verse 7, this among themselves, saying, he said that because we did not bring any bread. I'm really worried about the bread. I mean, that's serious stuff. What are we going to eat? And Jesus says, guys, well, look what he says. Verse 8, aware of this, he said, you men of little faith, why do you discuss among yourselves that you have no bread? Do you not understand or remember the 5 loaves and the 5,000 and how many baskets full you picked up? Or the 7 loaves of the 4,000 and how many large baskets you picked up? How is it that you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread? Guys, I'm not worried about what you're going to eat. I can make it out of thin air. Just bring me a piece of toast. I'll feed us for a month. So what are you so worried about bread for? You should have picked up on this. I mean, I was just talking, and y'all went somewhere totally different than I was going. That happens in class sometimes too, right? Teacher asks a question, and the whole class goes whoosh. We weren't paying any attention at all to what the teacher was really talking about. We're asking everything else in the world. Jesus just said, no, I ask you to beware of the leaven of the scribes and the Pharisees. And you went to bread. I think Jesus a lot of times looks at us and says, Y'all are so far off base, you've missed the point entirely. All I wanted to ask you to love one another. And now you've spent 10 years evaluating what that looks like, sounds like, goes out in the world. All I want you to do is do it. I just want you to love one another. Look out for the other person's best interest. And y'all have missed everything. You've gone crazy on it. You just didn't even hear what I was talking about. How many times does Jesus come to your life and say, I just want you to follow me today, to grow with me today? You know, and He's got a plan for you, and you miss it because you're not even able to understand this conversation. He says, guys, don't you remember I can feed you? I got the bread part down. Don't stress. Got it handled. Then in 12, then they understood that He did not say to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. That's what those people are saying. Danger. And it wasn't about who forgot the bread. It was about warning of the wrong influence. You're listening to the wrong voice. You're trying to please the wrong people. You're hearing the wrong teaching. Don't let the message of the Pharisees and Sadducees get to you. Don't let the religion of the day define your role between you and God. Don't let this church define your role between you and God. You have a relationship with God. We want to be part of that, and we want to be healthy, but we're going to blow it at some point. You have a relationship between you and God, and follow that through. Don't get lost in the religion. Don't get lost in the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Don't get lost in all the teaching that everybody's coming down. Don't worry about it. Who's standing where, and what are they wearing, and how deep is the baptistry? Don't worry about those things. He said, you have a relationship with God. He said, that's what I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on the fact that I'm your answer, and I want you to follow me. So then Jesus sort of gives them the test. And He's testing the class here in verse 13 through 20. And as He begins this, now when they came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, it was an important district. John the Baptist got in trouble there. A lot of things happened in that region. Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, He was asking His disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Boy, your hand shoots up. If your hand doesn't shoot up, shoot it up right fast. I got this one. It's an easy question. Notice how it starts. You need to be able to, if you don't know when to raise your hand in class, you need to be able to learn to read the questions. What do people say? Raise your hand immediately. You can say anything, right? Because people will say anything. Raise your hand immediately. What do people say? The teacher's letting you go fishing and they're letting you bring anything you want. Jesus just puts it up. What do people say? And they just jump at it. Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, but still others Jeremiah and one of the prophets. Everything is safe. Put it on the table. There is no threat there. You can sit here at church, okay? I can ask y'all, what color is this shirt? And y'all can talk about it all day long, and no one cares, and it doesn't matter. But we can spend all day on it. And we can get all sorts of opinions on it, and we can get all sorts of language on it. And Jesus says, what do the newspapers got out today? What's the report? What's on the page? What are they saying today? Well, you can give it to them. They've been keeping up with the gossip of the area. Boy, people have all sorts of opinions about you, Jesus. People say everything about you. They think you're Elijah. They think you're one of the prophets. Maybe you're Jeremiah. Maybe you're John the Baptist. They think all sorts of things about you, Jesus. And everything is cool there until He gives the next question. And who do you say that I am? Boy, all the hands went down. That's when you duck for cover. Who do you say that I am? He's had to ask you that question before, hadn't he? You've had to come up with an answer. Who do you say that the Son of Man is? And aren't we glad that our friend Peter is there? And Peter jumps in and raises his hand and says, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah." Y'all thought the Jonas brothers were somebody new, but the original Jonas brothers were Andrew and Peter. Simon Bar-Jonah, all that means is the Jonas brothers. Simon and Peter, the original Jonas brothers, and he says, you got it dead on. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonas, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. You got that straight from God. You're getting the answers from above. That's a great place. If you can get an answer from God and give it to Jesus, you're in great shape. And that's really all he's asking you to do, is take your life and say, here is my relationship with God, and feed it to Jesus. And he comes and he says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. I know who you are. Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And so, living on the Lord's side, that's really what Peter is saying. I know who the Lord is, and I want to be on his side. I want to walk with him and talk with him and live with him. And I don't worry about bread anymore, and I don't want to get caught up in religion anymore. I don't want to listen to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, anybody that's trying to draw me away or give me definitions that really don't help me. People spend their whole lives arguing about theological words, and half of them don't even believe there is a God. It's an amazing thing. Amazing thing. Jesus says, I know who you are. Then in verse 18, I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. I've got something to build. I'm going to build a community out of everyone who's living on my side. The church are those that are called out of not believing into those that do believe, living on the Lord's side. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. They asked you that question when you were baptized, right? They asked you that question. I'm living on the Lord's side. Do you believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God? I do. Some of you yelled it, some of you whispered it, some of you nodded it. But if you're in Christ Jesus, you declared that you believe that he is the Christ, the Son of the living God, King of kings and Lord of lords. I will build my church. The gates of Hades will not overpower it. Promise. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven. Strange language, right? Doesn't read that way in the new NIV. In the NIV. It reads that way in the New American. Whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. It's a future perfect passive tense. Future perfect passive. Shall have been, and we don't talk that way. We don't have that sort of wisdom. And so translating, it's a difficult thing. How do I translate that and have some sense of it? But he's not telling Peter that he gets to set legislation for the church and be the first pope. He's saying that God's will is going to be accomplished, and that our goal is to learn to live out the will of God, to live on the Lord's side. And he's saying, as you are living on the Lord's side, living out the will of God, then the life that you are living is what God has bound in heaven shall have been bound. He's taking care of it. He accomplished it. You don't get to decide it. It's a passive action. God is in control of it. It happens to you. You don't do it. You don't set the legislation. Isn't that a powerful thought? That living on the Lord's side means someone else is in charge. I don't have to set the legislation. That I've decided that he is King of kings, Lord of lords, that I'm going to be submissive to him. Tell me, whose side are you living on? I'm living on the Lord's side. Today, you may not be sure of that. Your take-home is simple. I shortened the sermon because I thought Sergey had the communion focus. So y'all can, you can blame Sergey for that one, right? Whose side are you living on today? Well, who do you say that the Son of Man is this morning? Who do you say? He's a good guy, great prophet, led a lot of people, did a lot of good. It's all true. But it's when you say, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, that you say, I'm living on the Lord's side. I'm moving to His community. If you haven't moved there yet, if you're on the fence, and maybe you just want to talk about religion, or maybe you just want to be in a community of friendly people, that's not who we are. We are those who are sold out to living on the Lord's side. And a lot of times we'll show up and say, who forgot the bread? And Jesus will go, and He'll stay with us. Guys, don't you understand? I've got that handled. Don't fret over that. That's my job, not your job. I got it. Just decide to live on my side. I'll take care of your food, your clothing. I take care of the birds and the flowers. I can handle whatever you need. I've got you. You afraid to die? I'll die for you. If you live and believe in me, you will never die. Do you believe this? I'm living on the Lord's side. Maybe it's time for you to convert this morning, to move to a new location, to living on the Lord's side. I believe in Jesus is the song that Byron's going to lay on your heart. If you believe in Jesus and you need to bring your life to Him, confess your sin to Him, be washed anew by Him, what a glorious time to do that. Maybe you just need a reminder that you've been living in the world and you say Jesus is Lord, and it's time for you to start living on the Lord's side. Together we stand and sing.